Guys, let's explore the UK slash UK100 slash FTSE market on Mosaic. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Date, day, UK events, holidays, CPI, GDP, Bank of England, etc., that you can filter for. FTSE, prior day, current day. Let's start there. Okay, so similar to the XJO on the Australian market, the FTSE is the underlying market. Okay, the top 100 shares on the London Stock Exchange. Where do they finish up compared to prior day? Okay, so for us in Australia, Sydney time, their market closes at about 3:30 a.m. So the FTSE is simply what is the difference between the 3:30 a.m. price through to the 3:30 a.m. price the next day. Okay, so that's again a proxy for the FTSE move in that day. Where did those physical shares, did they finish up, down, etc. Moving along, again similar to the Aussie, that futures dislocation move. This is telling us, okay, moving into the FTSE open. Okay, so here we go, 7 p.m. Sydney time. That is when their physical market opens. Okay, so similar to 10 a.m. for us on the ASX, 7 p.m. our time, their market opens. Okay, so going into that physical market open, when those 100 shares start actually trading and the money, puts its money where its mouth is in terms of where those shares move. What were the market participants expecting that basket to open at? Okay, were they expecting it to open down, up, flat? So this overnight futures dislocation tells you where participants were expecting that market to open at. Okay, so were they expecting it to open, as the market crashed, and so obviously the futures has fallen with it, expecting those shares to open a lot lower? Has it rallied? This is the prior day, obviously. So again, we're looking at what was this move for the day prior. Let's go in here. Then we have today. Okay, so as an example, when I'm heading into, it's heading into open, late evening in Australia or early evening in Australia, and the UK is about to open, I'm filtering this. Okay, I'm looking at, okay, well, if the futures are trading up 80 points, the first thing I'm doing is, putting that as the context for, where the patterns could be over the next 4, 6, 8 hours. Okay. London pre-market is the hour before it opens. So I should have marked it on here, but again, Sydney time, this is the move from 6 p.m. through to 7 p.m. Okay, so that move there, very, very important. Again, it just tells you leading into that first price that the shares trade at, is the market panicking? Do they think it's going to be open a lot lower than where it's currently priced, higher? Really tells you a little bit about the sentiment of the market. First 15 minutes, self-explanatory. First session, UK100 first session closed from open. Okay, so let's get specific about this, because this can be a little bit confusing. But when I'm talking about UK100, I'm talking about the futures. Okay, I'm talking about that derivative. So what are we looking at there? UK100 first session closed from open. So first session closed. So why do I look at the first session, which I deem as the first 4 hours of trading in the FTSE? The simple answer to this is I want to trade the FTSE, but I don't want to be staying up all night to do it. So essentially what I did is reverse engineer that first 4 hours. Most of the year that finishes at 9 p.m. So all those variables that we can control and look at, we can trade before heading off to bed for the night. So that's why I do it. I don't like kind of going to bed with open positions. So hence why I kind of put a lot of effort into reverse engineering that first session. Okay, so first session close literally from the 7 p.m. FTSE Open to 4 hours later. Okay, so in this case, whatever that works out to, down what 80 points last night. So that's what will show up in the UK first session close. Obviously high is the highest point, so in this case 75 to 93, so whatever that works out to, 18 points or something, that would be the high from open. Obviously the low, the opposite of that will be the lowest point that it reached in that 4 hour time period. The times, similar to the Aussie, it's the 15-minute when that highest point was reached, rounded back to the 15 minutes. So in this case it was, surprise surprise, the first 15 minutes of trade was the high of that session. So it would say 5 p.m. Okay, probably something I need to think about, but just as a general rule, I've just used for the UK and the US that London Open most of the year is at 5 p.m. our time. So that's what I've kind of used as the anchor. Low time session low. First session range is obviously just the low points plus the high points. FTSE first session close versus prior close. I've tried to be a bit more specific there. So again, that is this move here. Okay, so from the physical market close the previous night to that first session close, what is that move? What is the highest point that it made versus the close the previous day? What is the lowest point it made? Where this can be really, really interesting. So just to zone in again, the UK 100 high-low close is like what happened in this 4 hours here. The FTSE high-low close is, okay, in this 4 hours, what are the moves relative to the prior day closing? So where this is, interesting, and you'll see some patterns is, say again, the Aussie has closed, XJO has dumped 200 points today. Okay, say the FTSE, say the futures is trading, down 20 points, and you think, geez, that feels a little bit bullish compared to what we did in our market and what Asia's done. Well, you can filter in Mosaic, you can filter, XJO down 200, and then look at, well, what are the lowest, the highest prices that the FTSE made, okay, compared to prior day. So in that particular example, if you saw that, the highest price historically that it's made in that 4 hours was, let's say, the highest price whenever the XJO has fallen more than 200 points is kind of, minus 100, and it's always traded below there. Well, if the FTSE futures are currently going to open at minus 80, you probably know that there's going to be some pretty significant downside to kind of come within that historical range moving into FTSE Open. So high versus prior close, low versus prior close, and then obviously the FTSE net change, which again is the 3:30 a.m. into 3:30 a.m. Current day. Hopefully that clears up a few things. Let's move on to the US.